Well, hello, it's David Baer here, and I have the honor of literally sitting down and chatting with Anais Salas about her work and her book and a bunch of other stuff that I know very little about, and I'm super intrigued to learn more. So, Anais, thanks for making some time to chat with me.
Thank you, David. This is really a lovely opportunity for me, and it's coming at a really great time. And I'm so excited to get to know you a little bit better.
Indeed, indeed. So, the first time I encountered you and I sort of heard you talking about what you did, you started down this path that I was like, oh, this is like really cool sciencey stuff by talking about quantum theory, interdimensional physics, and first of all, way over my head. But then you went into this whole area of how we individually internalize these concepts. Can you give us the layperson's explanation of the kind of work that you do?
I can. I'm happy to do that. I have been changing people's lives one life at a time for 30 years, and that work includes bringing an understanding of energy and how we are all fundamentally energy, and energy at every level is conscious. And consciousness and energy is information, and conscious energy information is awareness, and awareness gives us the best tools for us to co create a life that is full of meaning, full of purpose, full of value, great relationships, and being able to make a huge impact in the world with who we are.
It sounds like something that everybody ought to want to aspire to. If you could give me for my sake a demonstration of how this might apply in somebody's everyday life, where is somebody typically experiencing life before they meet you, and then once they get introduced to your knowledge and and the stuff that you do, how does that shift in just sort of simple practical terms, daily activity or encounters or something? Can you walk me through that a little bit?
Well, yeah, it's really practical right now because I've had a lot of experience working alongside physicians and doctors with critical burn care and in areas like pediatric oncology.
Okay.
And in those instances, I'm introduced to someone who is in a life or death struggle or in a really serious struggle to heal from what's been a kind of a terrible tragedy or misfortune in their lives. In doing this work, for instance, I'll give you an example. I work with a 14-year-old girl named Natasha, and she was working through the health issue of Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay.
And she'd been in the hospital for many, many weeks. And she really just wanted to go home to get her blood levels, her white count. This is going to get technical. Her white blood cell count up to a level where her doctors felt it would be safe for her to go home and not risk infection. She had a challenged immune system, a challenged body with the treatment. So we did our work together. I met with her a couple of times a week, during which time I would take her through conversations about her life, her feelings, her emotions, and then I began to give her a guided visualization to use. And it was specifically so that she could begin to interact with her own white blood cells and get the count up and release them in her body. Well, within 3 weeks, her levels went up. She was able to go home. That's very practical.
Yeah, and as I hear you tell the story, it really sounds like a very accessible way to understand what you do, because it's so similar to what we would expect maybe traditional therapy might offer, until you sort of get to the point where you introduce your special approach, right? Your the way that
Mhm.
you address an issue, and that's I think, thank you for going through that process, because now I get a much better sense of how you can apply something that many people would look at and their eyes glaze over, or they think, well, that's a little, what was your phrase earlier before
Hi
we
woo
started?
woo.
A little woo woo,
Hi
right?
woo woo.
and,
Right.
and you can see, oh well, this is a practical application. If that patient who is sitting there going through that process has that desired outcome, and they this sounds like the wrong phrase, but it's the phrase I'm going to use anyway. Buy into the approach that you're using, right?
They
Internalize,
choose.
right?
They choose to
That it works.
participate.
Yes, that they choose to follow the approach that you're taking, right? That it's going to be effective,
It is
and
effective.
yeah,
And we have, I mean, I have the medical verification on it, so I'm not worried about it,
right.
right? But I would like more people to know how effective it can be and how practical. So I'll give you another example. This past spring, I've taken this information, which I just shared with you, is energy, consciousness, information, awareness, and it functions in our bodies in ways that some of us are just beginning to really get a hold of. And COVID 19 has a lot to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I have taken my work and I have created a product. And that one of the products that I've created is called SV, as in Victor, R. And it's a water based information. That's all it is, in a bottle. And I have shared it with people who have been dealing with antibiotic resistant skin infections like MRSA, Candida, Pseudomonas. And they're looking at, I mean, these things can go south very quickly, can move into sepsis, which can be fatal. And we've had complete turnarounds within hours of people who are using that product in coordination and in a complementary way with whatever their physicians are guiding them to do. It's stunning. So I have video of that, I have photographs, and I'd like to get that product out into the world, which is why I wrote my book.
Right. Right. So let's talk about the book briefly, and then we can talk a little bit more about how you work in the traditional medical space doing what you do, because that's I think quite intriguing. It's not very typical for somebody who comes from the woo space to actually do that. So let's talk about the book first.
Okay, so the book is about this process, and it's really looking at it from how do you tune into yourself, pay attention to yourself, really listen to who you are, and then bring that out into the world, which I call the living spiral of transformation. Because who we're meant to do and be in this life is in our DNA. It's encoded when we're born, it's there. We just have to get out of the way and live in communities that will support that expression. So the book is called The Living Spiral of Transformation. Discover the hidden power in your diverse, unique DNA. And I want everybody to know how to do this.
So who do you think you would say? I know everybody, of course, but who do you think is going to benefit from the book most in terms of how they're going to be able to take the information that you share there and then apply it in their lives or the lives of others that they influence?
Parents, teachers, and young people who are just coming out of COVID 19, the global pandemic, and wondering what the heck just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And how do we move forward? And in a way that we can see that the massive transformations that are going on so many levels of our societies right now around the world. This is how we do it. We open our minds, we look at new paradigms, we look at new possibilities and new solutions. And if we can, what's his name? Bezos? Is it Bezos who's going, or Tesla? They're doing rocket ships?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing,
yep.
yeah, is a version of a rocket ship, but it's going to be deep exploration right here in the space that we live in every day.
So you got this book, which is the toolkit that somebody can take and learn and then use in their community in some way. And before we started recording, I said, I'm a marketer. How can we apply my knowledge to the stuff that you're doing? I'm thinking immediately about how somebody can take this book and share it and market the concepts to the communities in which they exist, in the communities they serve. And immediately I'm thinking, well, gosh, this is like a book club opportunity. This is the way to start a conversation among a community. And that's probably something that you and I'll figure out after we finish recording,
Okay.
how you can take this concept of, all right, I got the book. Now I need to build the framework around how people use the book.
And the workbooks.
There you go. Okay. So you already have the pieces, the materials, and we need to figure out how to introduce it to people who are going to take it, leverage it for the benefit of the people in their lives.
This is correct. And I see this going from a bridge between a young person who is, say, 12 to maybe 18 years old, who is feeling something really radically different has gone on. They need to have a conscious understanding of what that potential is in their lives, to someone who is a health and wellness practitioner who wants to know, how do I help my patient? This happened to me again when I was working alongside with critical burn care. A doctor came to me. He was going to have to amputate a guy's leg because it was burned down to the bone, and they couldn't perform any skin grafts. He said, "Can you help me? Can you help this guy?" I said, "I don't know, but I'd be ready to try." So I did what I did, doing energy work, and yeah, so it sparked stem cell growth, it sparked granulation of tissue, and a year later, although it was an arduous journey, that man walked out of the hospital on his own 2 feet.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this is where I'm coming from. It's not, I mean, it's high woo to other people. To me, it's how do you get that person out the door? We have a terrible problem with gun violence in the United States. There are people who are killed, but there are people who are survived, who will survive a gunshot wound or several gunshot wounds. They themselves face the dangers of what's going to happen with my wound. How far am I going to be able to heal that? How far can I recover my life? I just want to offer them a tiny little bit of here. This might help you go the next 5 steps. Let me give it to you. My book is a way for me to give that to people.
That's great. I mentioned before that I want to talk a little bit about the traditional health establishment, because you have been working hand in glove with the traditional healthcare space for much of your career. You mentioned specifically working with burn victims, and I'm curious how you found yourself in that situation, in that setting in the first place.
That's a really long story, David. It's a great story, but we might want to try, do like a follow up to this,
Sure.
because I just had a feeling about it. And then that feeling developed into, all of a sudden, there was a chain of people who just stepped up and said, "Here you go." One woman was supposed to present at a conference. She was speaking with Deepak Chopra. There were going to be tons of other medical people there. She became sick. She said, "I can't go. Please take my paper and deliver the paper for me." She put me on that panel. She didn't even know me, right? There are things that happen like that. And then
Yeah.
through that connection, at that conference, I met a contingent of people who happened to be in Moscow, Russia. And I had come with a letter saying, "This is what I'd like to do." And one doctor said to me, "I can't," Russia was falling apart at that point, "I can't bring you, but if you can get there, you can come and teach in my medical school." And I was like, "Okay." And I believed him. I did a number of wonderful workshops with some people in different parts of the United States. I scraped together my dollars. I bought my ticket. I went to Moscow. I didn't know a soul. And things unfolded from there.
Yeah.
And I met people, and it just blossomed like a flower. And then I got to do this incredible work and meet these wonderful people, and bring a lot of really good change to people who were in a lot of pain and not quite sure what was going to happen.
And probably have tried a lot of things in that situation that didn't work, or weren't holding. And I'm assuming that at least for some people, that you introduced a new concept that actually did accomplish something for them.
It was an extraordinary collaboration because
Yeah.
the doctors were willing to make space for me. And then I was able to bring qualities of pain relief to, in some cases, they didn't have the drugs anymore. Their economy had fallen apart. They didn't have, the morphine was saved. The heavy drugs were saved for the burn patients who were not going to recover, who were going to die, but who were going to die in agony. So the people that I was working with were a couple of levels down from that. They were going to need surgeries, multiple surgeries, maybe an amputation was in question, but I was able to collaborate and fill in a space that made the doctor's work that much easier. better outcomes for the patients. And the doctors were relieved of having to do, it's not easy being in that situation where, you're debriding the dead skin off of a burned patient. It's extremely painful.
Yeah.
Doctors have to have a real stamina to be able to hold on to their centers doing that kind of work with people day after day, right? Yeah, so it was a really beautiful opportunity to collaborate. And then I've been waiting a number of years, and actually, I think COVID-19 created the space
Hmm.
for something new to happen.
So, and I want to get to where I think there's opportunity, particularly in the health and wellness space, whether it's sort of traditional medical establishment or otherwise. But I want to fast forward a bunch of years because you actually went through training yourself to work to be part of that establishment medical world a little bit. I'm curious why, but tell us a little bit about what it is that you did.
I became a certified emergency medical technician because I didn't have time to just suddenly reroute my whole life from being, someone in a completely different profession
Yeah.
to becoming a doctor or even becoming a nurse. So I looked at it and I thought, what can you do? What can you do? Really do it and have the basic ground level information that you need to be able to assess what's going on in a medical emergency, right? Okay, emergency medical technician.
Yep.
So I put myself through that because it made sense and it added some legitimacy and it expressed, I think, my intent around really having a serious investment in this kind of work.
Yeah. And again, somebody who has expertise in an alternative approach that you've invested the time and energy to really understand the what is more traditional and how
Absolutely.
to then make the connection between the two of them. That's pretty uncommon, wouldn't you say?
I I think I'm an unusual person
In a good way, which is
in a
which is
good
which is
way.
great. So one of the things that I know you're aiming to do is
Mhm.
to really introduce the concepts that you have expertise in to some of the health and wellness
Yes.
folks out in the world. What is it that you think they are in need of that you can introduce to them and help them solve in their from their perspective?
It's the opportunity because many of them feel it instinctively, but they don't know how to get there and bring it out of themselves because they are feeling hemmed in by the traditional walls. And so, what I say is come in, I have a 3 year training program, come into my program, and gradually we're going to stretch out those walls so that you have more space to discover what's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we go from impossible to possible. How? I am.
Mm, like that. So, and I'm assuming that not knowing that world well, that some are constrained by uh, the organization they're a part of, and they're limited with what flexibility they have. But many have the ability to broaden the way that they approach solving problems for their patients.
Yes. And that I think is the bridge that I would like to walk on. Rather than being in separate camps, I think there needs to be a bridge that people can traverse easily and share. Why? Because it's what's best for the person who's got the problem.
Yeah, a beautiful approach, and I think a great perspective that more of us ought to have is that there's this is the wrong phrase too. I'm coming up with lots of the wrong phrases, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, is what I was gonna say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a great time to, as we're really leaning into new solutions around many things climate, what we're doing there, how we're in relationship with each other, what's going on in the healthcare system around the world that has been so challenged by an unexpected visitor, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, uh, your book is going to, I think, touch so many people's lives and so many people around them when embraced and positioned properly. I was thrilled to hear the word workbook as soon as you chimed in with that, because that's going to really be an instrument for change and improvement for a lot of the folks who step up and embrace what you have to offer.
That's what stretches the walls.
Yeah.
Doing the personal work and having a conscious framework, and then being in an environment where there's an exchange of information, energy, confirmation, ideas, validations, and then we do it in a container that's let's just try it, see what happens. We know we're not going to hurt anyone.
I love that, and I love the layperson's approach in terms of language that you use to describe the new concepts. And I'm sure that anybody who picks up the book and the workbook and goes through that process will get an education from you, but one that's accessible, that they can then take and apply to their lives and the lives of the people around them.
I
So
certainly hope so. It's been my goal.
yep. And I tell folks where they can find more about you and the book, and what the next step is they should take if they want to take action.
Okay, well, you can come visit my website, which is called Accelerated Conscious Evolution. And there on that website will be information that will link you to the book, The Living Spiral of Transformation. Discover the hidden power in your diverse, unique DNA, and then take it forward and use it in every way that's beneficial to you and anyone you care about. So that's how you can reach me.
That's beautiful. We'll make sure that there's a link wherever the video is posted for people to go ahead and click on and explore further. And I sell us any last words before we wrap things up here?
Oh, I could quote Shakespeare. There is more in this heaven and earth, and what was he was talking to Horatio than you imagine, Horatio. Let's find out what that more is.
I love the fact that you went in the direction of Shakespeare after everything we've been talking about. You are not woo, you're grounded, and you quoted a literary icon. That's just brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome, David. Thank you. It's been really fun to do this with you, and I know you have a lot to teach me because the world needs this, and I'm going to need some help getting it out there.
Well, I look forward to continuing the conversation and helping you get that word out there. Anais Salas, thank you so much for making time for this conversation. And for folks who are listening, go ahead and click on the link and learn more about Anais's work and her book, and ways that you can embrace it and let it enter your life and the lives of folks around you.
Thank you, David.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Bye.